when it comes to you deciding that you want to follow your roots, right, your African roots, you have to ask yourself one question, that how far are you willing to go? How deep are you willing to dig? Because the rabbit hole gets deeper and deeper. Which brings us to today's episode. But before we start with it, make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you hit the bell so that you can be notified every time we drop an episode, and let's get on with it. I'm one person. I do not really take Joshua Maponga serious, right? And I do not take people who listen to Joshua Maponga serious, because to them, this is wisdom.
Msadi Omaqalong, first wife you're marrying, is not your wife. It's your father's wife. Kiena, who pays the cows for you. As you are rightly saying, you're 21 years old. Where do you get the cows from? So it is the father who takes the cows and go and gets a wife
for you,
for himself. In the Tsonga tribe, the tradition is no longer practiced, but in the olden tradition, literally the firstborn child is supposed to come from your father. Your firstborn is your brother. So you cannot divorce that woman, because if you don't want her, your father wants her.
After all.
It's him who even paid the cows for it. But I mean, some of the Tonga younger people might want to come in arms and etc. But from the traditional space, he hands over. And by the way, that's what I was saying. He remove the medicine, you know. So you don't know how these things are eaten, young men, when they will remove the medicine for and you. Then like even when you have millies in our tribes, you as a young boy, you would not know where to start. Then an uncle comes and says, "Hey, bring me that thing," and then he opens the road for you. Then after that, you can eat.
If you want to follow African spirituality and you want to do things the African way, ask yourself how deep you want to go. Now, hearing Joshua Maponga say this, that my first wife is my father's wife, even logic itself tells you that it's morally wrong. Whether my dad is the one who took out the money and gave me so that I can pay the bride price to the girl's family, my dad can never have my wife. There's a reason why the Bible tells us about adultery. It does not matter whether it's your father who slept with your wife or anybody. It's just wrong, morally wrong.
He hands over. And by the way, that's what I was saying. He remove the medicine, you know. So you don't know how these things are eaten, young men, when they will remove the medicine for and you. Then like even when you have millies in our tribes, you as a young boy, you would not know where to start. Then an uncle comes and says, "Hey, bring me that thing," and then he opens the road for you. Then after that, you can eat.
Now, the example that they are using, that let me remove the poison for you, that is used in food. Like when I was still growing up, so I'm from, my dad is from Zim, right? And then my mother's from South Africa. So when I was growing up in Zim as a kid, because I did stay in Zimbabwe as a kid. So when I was still growing up in that part of the world, there was a time where we would eat things like maize, right? And then maybe a brother or an uncle would come and say, let me open up a way for you. It's like they are leading the way for you. But that was done through the food.
Your firstborn is your brother. So you cannot divorce that woman. Because if you don't want her, your father wants her.
After all.
Now we are talking about sexual relations. Is my dad supposed to sleep with my wife? No. If my dad sleeps with my wife, I'm gonna snap. if I'm one with my wife, that's what I'm supposed to indulge. I can never go to my son's wife and say, let me make you a firstborn. That is immoral. You have Joshua Maponga here saying it, and then just because of he's gonna say this was an African way of doing things, people become like, yeah, this is the way of doing things.
In the Tsonga tribe, the tradition is no longer practiced, but in the olden tradition, literally the firstborn child is supposed to come from your father. Your firstborn is your brother.
And no, it's not the way of doing things. That's just immoral. So we cannot do things because of they were done in our cultures back then. That's why I said, how far are you willing to go? You will find out that grandmothers used to sleep with their kids, and that was a cultural thing. That was a cultural thing. Just because of African people in the olden days used to do it, it does not mean it's right. I mean, look at the Canaanites. The Canaanites were sacrificing babies to Molech. Imagine if right now the Canaanites in this age were to decide that, you know what, since our forefathers were sacrificing babies to Molech, let us start sacrificing babies to Molech. It's wrong. That's the reason why God permitted the Israelites to kill the Canaanites in the first place. The Efik people of Nigeria, they believed that twin babies were evil spirits. You know, they believed that twin babies were evil spirits and the mother slept with an evil spirit. So they would take those babies to the forest somewhere and they would, not the forest somewhere, they would take those babies to the evil forest and then those babies would be eaten by beasts and whatnot. It was wrong. So imagine if they decided today that we have to go back to our African roots. Their African roots believed that twin babies were not human beings. Check also in Egypt. We have the ancient Egyptian retainer sacrifice. If a king or pharaoh had died, they would kill servants because of they believed that these servants are going to serve this guy who died in the afterlife. Imagine if they did that today. You want to serve your ancestors, right? Your ancestors at some point, they used to do some of the weird things. Some of them even ate human flesh. But these are the things that the likes of Maponga will never address to you. But rather, they will emphasize the fact that it is African, right? Now, I'm Tsonga, by the way, not married. But when I get married, my father my father passed away, but even if he was alive, he was never going to touch my wife. But here's one of the reasons why I deny African spirituality, right? And these African beliefs that the likes of Maponga are pushing. They do not promote a healthy community building. They do not create ways in which we live with one another. One thing you have to understand about biblical principles is that they are more about how you treat the next person, right? They are more about how you behave around the next person. There's no individualism in Christianity. Those who have everything are supposed to serve those who have nothing. Those who have a voice are supposed to speak for those who do not have a voice, because there's no individualism in Christianity, but there is what we call fellowship. The reason why you are not supposed to sleep around is because of, at the end of the day, that thing you are doing is gonna affect the next person negatively. The reason you are not supposed to steal from your neighbor is because of there is enmity that will develop from you stealing from your neighbor. So I'll forever subscribe to Christianity because there's proper ways of building a family. There's proper ways of coexisting with the community. There's a proper way of interacting with your employees and employers. So it gives you a way on how to build a healthy society and a healthy community. But because of people want to live selfishly, people want to be greedy, people do not want to be reprimanded, they say Christianity is what? Is toxic. So you cannot make decisions based on, nah, my forefathers used to do it, so I do it. The question is it right? Does it harm the next person? Does it harm the community? Does it promote harmony between you and your neighbor? Do you think that today, if I was to permit my father to sleep with my wife, I was still gonna look at my wife the same? No. There's a reason why the Bible says that he who sleeps with the wife of another man is like taking hot coal and putting it on his own chest. There's a reason why a man in the Bible is told to stick to his roles, and then a woman is told to stick to her roles, and then that way we can build a proper family. So biblical principles, they lead towards a healthy family, a healthy community, a healthy society. But I don't see that in African spirituality, unfortunately. So if you want to follow your African what, it's fine, you can follow them. But how far are you willing to go? Just because of Maponga came up with an ideology and then he said Africans used to do 1, 2, 3 in the olden days. And you're like, yeah, this is wisdom. No, dude, sit down, listen to him, study what he's saying, use logic. Logic, I don't even need the Bible to prove that what he's saying in this video is pure nonsense. Right? Even if it was done in the olden days, even if it was done, it does not mean that it is right. Because of it was done in the olden days does not mean that it is right. It's still pure nonsense. Anyway, thanks for watching up to this far, and to those whom we offended and we continue to offend each and every week, for once I'm gonna say forgive me. And for those that who keep on subscribing to our channel, thank you so much. Those who keep on commenting, thank you so much. Keep on liking, keep on doing the most, because your like, your comment, they push our videos and we hit the streets of YouTube, and yeah, that's how our channel grows. And we thank you so much up to this far. And if you watched up to this point, thanks for tuning in. Until the next time, I say God bless.